Talk show. Recorded live.
Hello, everyone. This is Kevin, or also known as Karma Tinfoil on Facebook. This is Cation Tinfoil Hat Area, call number 89564. I have a couple of quick announcements that I want to toss out there. I'm going to try and get this right in the exact order of how they are coming up. First off, just happens to be what we're talking about tonight as well is Z-Day or Zietgiest, basically a 2011 event, Philly. It's going to be Saturday, the 12th of March, from, it looks like 8 a.m. until 5 p.m. It will be at the WHYY studio. There is limited seating, so you might want to call about that ahead of time. There's only about 200 chairs, I believe. I'm sorry, it says 1 p.m. until 11 p.m. for day one, and then 9:30 p.m. until 8 p.m. on day two. There will be a couple different people there to speak, including one of my former guests that was on my Liberty Leaders episode, which I will probably be referencing again later. Mike Salvi will be speaking about End the Fed, which is the actual next item up as well. I'm sorry, actually, and Mark Passio actually will be also speaking there. He is actually the first one up on April 9th and 10th, 2011 in Philadelphia, PA. There's the Free Your Mind Conference, and you can go to freeyourmindconference.com in order to get any extra details from that. And as I said, Mike Salvi is going to be helping run FedStock 2. It's basically an End the Fed rally where we will be meeting and handing out information, as well as having a little bit of a concert on the lawns out in front of the Independence Visitor Center, downtown Philadelphia. It's North 5th Street and Market Street in Philadelphia. That's going to be Saturday, April 23rd at noon. That'll start. I think that's it as far as my little advertisements are going here. I'm sorry, I apologize. One last one. On the 29th of April 2011 is Global Tinfoil Hat Day. I was actually asked to help represent this little thing that was going. Essentially what we're doing is everyone who has any sort of statuses that they can put up anywhere, be it on Twitter, on Facebook, or if you want to make a video, go for it. But put up information that you know to be true that is controversial that day. Stir the pot, talk to your friends, talk to your family, get the information out there, start teaching the controversy to people. It's about time we have some real honest conversations about the harsh realities of life. It's not enough just to be weird anymore, and we need to actually work towards a goal. And I think End the Fed is a big one. And one of my guests here tonight is Ken, also known as the King for Mayor on YouTube. Hello, Ken.
Hello. How's it going?
Very good. And yourself?
Pretty good. Thanks for having me on tonight.
Oh, thank you for actually having the conversation in a logical fashion. There's so many trolls on the internet that just want to pick a fight, and I really appreciate the fact that you are sincerely engaging the conversation, and that makes me proud that there are people out there that either don't know enough and are still willing to listen, or that even if you're on the other side of the fence and don't think it'll work at all, you're at least willing to figure out how to point it out, and maybe, who knows, maybe it'll help because the conversation.
Yeah, well, the thing that we have to remember is that nobody knows enough. There's no such thing as a person who knows enough. we all have to ask questions and answer them all the time.
Yeah, right on, and specifically to anyone who dares to claim authority over another person.
Yeah, or, even you always question the questions, always make sure that, when you inject information into your questions, make sure that your information's right.
Yeah, fair enough.
Maybe somebody knows something that you don't know, and you're not going to find out unless you listen to them.
Exactly. So thank you, seriously, sincerely, thank you for coming on. Well, I guess, could you give a little bit of a breakdown about yourself to let people know where you're coming from, just in general, not to pigeonhole you as you're this or that or the other thing, but,
right.
Just give people a general basic concept.
For where I'm coming from, I'm just a normal person, minimum wage earner, poverty line liver here in the United States. That's where I come from foremost. In the past couple of years, I've been getting a little more, proactive, I guess, in the whole, problems of the world situation thing going on. I've been doing that through journalism. I was a reporter for the Seattle Sinner, which is it's kind of like a underground newspaper, monthly publish. It's you'll find it in bars more than you'll find it in newspaper stands, but it's a paper nonetheless that's all about alternative media and things that people aren't telling you. So I started doing that. Did that for a couple of years. I recently kind of got back into making movies and films. I was pretty lazy about it. I used to be a filmmaker, but I made little independent sci-fi stuff like that about 10 years ago, and recently I started getting back into doing documentaries. Well, for the first time doing documentaries and trying to start putting information out there and compile ideas together. I did a film called September 11th. On September 11th last year, I released it, and we showed that on live video, and we had a lot of people. We had I think 8,000 people tune in and watch the premiere of it. Yeah, now that my YouTube account has got the longer play times, I'm going to re-edit it and re-release that in a couple months here. So yeah, that's basically where I'm coming from. And like we were talking about before, I just want to say that one of the problems I've been seeing in general in the truth movement is that people need to learn how to take criticism. I understand that there's people out there attacking and spreading misinformation and all of that, but we can't expect the other side to value our opinion unless we start to value theirs and really take what people say. I've seen everybody do it, and it's like when you try to talk to somebody about 9/11, who was got the official opinion cemented in their mind, and they just can't take it. It blows their mind, and they just get upset and start yelling. I call it the Bill O'Reilly syndrome, but it happens to us too. People start challenging, different, freedom movements ideas, and we blow up. We go crazy. We call them liars. But what we need to do is really be prepared when these people talk to us, have our ideas ready, and give counterpoints and give them in a way that's very non offensive. Very conversational. So that's basically what I'm coming on to talk to you about tonight, and plus, I guess we're going to talk a little more about the RBE thing as well. So, back to you.
Right on. Thank you. I'm glad. You also mentioned that to me before that you were a libertarian as well, and a little bit into the Tea Party. You mentioned on one of your videos, and that you felt like they had been completely co-opted by the Republicans who are now in charge. And I thought that was a really keen observation, and I think that's something that's like kind of really obvious for most people, but and clearly not for everyone. I mean, most of the people that I know see like the Tea Party leader as like maybe Ron Paul, but unfortunately, it has been completely pulled away from him.
It's not even Ron Paul. If it was Ron Paul, that would be fine, but it's not. You know, it's the same actors. You know, actor politicians coming in, stepping in, taking over like they always do. You know, and that happens to everybody. You know, people need to be conscious of that. I was never a part of the Tea Party, just because by the time I had any interest in it, it was already too far gone for me to participate in it. So then I kind of found the Libertarian Party after that, and I was watching. They do a lot of educational stuff, and they had this class about the Constitution that just really kind of hit home with me, you know. And so I've been there ever since.
I understand that, actually. Seth. Oh, go ahead, Seth. Yeah, you're coming in good now. Thank you for joining us.
I can hear you.
Well, I decided to use some pretty antiquated technology. It's called a cell phone, and yeah, well, I have a question.
That'll give you brain cancer.
Yeah, I know. No kidding. I'm paranoid enough. That's why I hate talking on the cell phone. Anyway,
I'm the same way. I'm on my cell phone too, though. So
this is when I make a short joke about wearing tinfoil on your head.
Yeah, I could use some tinfoil right about now.
I have a question. What's the difference between the Boston Tea Party and the Tea Party?
200 years?
No, I mean there is a Boston Tea Party, which I joined, but I don't know. I mean, is that what their
well, here's the thing. This is what I gathered from the Tea Party. I did research it quite a bit, so I know a little bit about it and its structure. And what it is that there was the original Tea Party movement, which, let's see, I wrote his name down here somewhere. Something Leach. Let's see. Yeah, Trevor Leach. He started the Tea Party after the, behind the idea of the Boston Tea Party, and it was all about taxes. And there was like 18 guys, right? And then it just kind of like took off, and, they're like, yeah, start your own, Tea Party movement. So what it is a bunch of different grassroots movements, and they all have their own like little agendas. Like there's little groups, and they range anywhere from like 8 people up to 5,000 people. But then there was these guys called the Tea Party Patriots, who kind of started collecting them and like bringing them all into one group, but it's still a bunch of separate groups. They just all identify as Tea Party Patriots. And then there are still Tea Party movements that are not part of the Tea Party Patriots. So it's a very confusing. There's really no sort of governing body to it. It's not like a real political party like Republicans or Democrats or Libertarians or Green Party. There's no structure to it. It's very organic or anarchical, if you want, however you want to put it.
Oh, okay. So, like, I joined something called the Boston Tea Party, which is at bostontea.us. And so I'm wondering if I got to look at their whatever. But anyway, I was just curious.
Yeah, you got to, if you talk to Tea Parties, just remember they're all different, so check out and ask them what their particular set of guidelines is.
Okay. Because, I mean, I flipped. I joined the Coffee Party now.
I was going to actually make this suggestion, and please, no one else say anything if you get this joke ahead of time, but check out lemonparty.org at some point. Any listeners that happen to catch this, you'll get a joke out of this, in theory.
I'll have to check it out. I haven't seen it.
It's Quite a sight to see. Oh man, this is.
Oh,
Did
no.
you just look it up? Yeah. Yeah. Mike, I was listed under humor, so I couldn't help it. I'm sorry.
What has been seen cannot be unseen.
Yes, it's true.
You're evil, Kevin. You're evil.
Yeah, I know, it's true. On occasion. Yeah. So, speaking of evil, about our Luciferian cult, not sure if anyone's seen the latest, one of the latest videos that's out there. It's called The Zietgiest Movement Exposed. It is truly hysterical. They go over all of the ad hom bombs, as Stefan Molyneux put it, that are out there, such as us being called a cult and part of the NWO, and how we sit around masturbating and like playing video games all day and stuff like that. So I highly recommend people check that out, so this way we can get past a lot of the bullshit.
You're masturbating and playing video games all day. I knew it. I called you on that.
No, totally, you did. I remember you doing it.
So that means either we're unemployed or we're still living with our parents. That's pretty bad. Anyway.
Seth, actually, I do want to call you out right here on the air as well, real quick. Sorry to derail the conversation any further, but dude, come on, come out to play laser tag with us. We're trying to get a gang of people from both the Jersey crew of the Zietgiest movement as well as the Philly one to come out and light each other up a bit. And come on, you only have to walk around. You're not even allowed to run in there. Just come with us.
Okay, I will come out and play laser tag. It's only to allow you to see what a 42-year-old man, out of shape old man, or whatever, 40 or whatever. I don't know.
Dude, I'm 36. I'll be 37 in May. So like, don't feel bad.
Look, everything changes after you turn 40.
Okay, I haven't made it there yet. I know everything changed at 30 enough. But I don't know. Ken, where would you like to start things? I mean, you're the one that has the questions that I guess we're kind of going to be
I want to talk more about
here.
the supercomputer. I need to know more about the supercomputer of yours. You know, where do you keep it? I want to see it.
You mean the one?
Go ahead, Seth. Go ahead.
No, well, anyway, I was going to say something humorous, but the humor failed me. So what do you want to know?
Well, I mean, okay, like, I've still got some problems with it. My number one problem is it doesn't exist. Like, or does it? I mean, if it does, awesome. I want to check it out. I'm a computer programmer. I love that stuff. I'd love to look under the hood of it. I mean, I guess it could happen organically through, like, you know, if everybody stopped using Windows and Mac and went to Linux, you know, I'm sure it could happen organically, but that's not happening any time soon. And like, what if like what if say like the government collapsed tomorrow, right? All the governments in the world collapse tomorrow, and you know, it's time for somebody else to step up. I mean, it doesn't seem like RBE is ready to step up and take that place. That's my question, because that's really important, especially, you know, in an active movement. You really have to have you need a proper game plan. You need to be ready to step up to anything that can come at you, because it can come up at any moment. You can't stop seeing you know, the solution to the problem in the future, because you're never going to get to the future. The future will always be in the future. You need to see it now.
No, that's a good question to ask, because I totally hear what you're saying. First thing I want to mention is there's this thing called clouding. It's a computer term that I'm guessing you might know of, and it's where they link up a bunch of computers to kind of process a whole bunch of information faster. You know of this concept, correct? Okay.
Yes.
I then want to mention, again, I know, please everyone forgive me, that I make a lot of references to sci-fi and stuff, so I'm hoping everyone understands the next few words, and I hope everyone truly groks my Darmok here. The Star Trek nerds will totally get that. Some Highland fans will get the joke as well. But like for people to fully comprehend some of the allegories that I make, they do reference sci-fi and stuff, so just forgive me and run with me. That said, there's this movie called War Games that talked about this thing called the Whopper, and they had this giant supercomputer that programmed all these different variables of different war game strategies. And these types of supercomputers do exist, correct?
Well, sure, yeah. IBM's got chess-playing computers. I think one just won the Jeopardy the other day. You know, they're supercomputers. Sure.
And so since you've got all these different supercomputers around the, but if they've got all these supercomputers around the world,
they don't
start out with. You're talking about
there's only like 6 of them.
Okay, that's a start as far as I'm concerned. Between clouding and all the other different computers out there that are like also amazing, like they don't all have to be supercomputers to start out with to get a solid network going. I mean, even like Google already has a large database set up so as to be able to direct people to get the information they need. A lot of the basic concepts are just right there and then expanded upon, as was mentioned in the video that I sent you about how even the tracking systems that like
is good. Yeah, I like. There was this program that you can download from SETI, and it's a screensaver on your computer. It's been around for about 12 years, and what that does is that takes information from the SETI earpiece, and then it sends it out to all the people who have the screensaver, and they get a little tiny chunk of the information, and they process it, and they send it back to SETI. So that's like a way that, like, you know, that's an example of you know, using computer processing that works really well. But you need to have people put the software on their computer. That's the key. You know. You have to,
okay. Now let me actually throw this. Let me throw this over to Seth actually, because I think Seth, like, you're gonna talk about the new thing that Zietgiest has, right?
Yeah, and I'm going to throw a link here into the chat. Currently, we have a project with Zietgiest where we're asking members to sign up to the with the BOINC client and attach to the Aqua at Home project, which is a project to simulate quantum computing. And currently, we are the #1 team for that project. With 3,474 members and average credit of 7 million. It's like we get like 7 million credits, average credits for whatever, per cycle or something. So we're actively pursuing these kind of technologies so that you know, so we can learn more about them. And yeah, so we're involved.
Okay.
Real quick, I want to throw something else out. Someone in the chat room asked a couple questions, and Scorpio is the name here. First one was, how long have you been studying conspiracy theory? So just a rough date and time for each of you guys. That's basically how long have you been aware? Ken?
Probably like 7th or 8th grade.
Right on.
Yeah, no, seriously, I was in history class, and we were going over the JFK assassination, and the teacher was like, it had the smoking gun photo of Oswald with a rifle, and she goes, so this is called a smoking gun photo. Do you guys know why? And we're like, because he's holding the gun that killed John F. Kennedy? And she goes, no, because the shadow underneath his chin is going a different direction than the rest of the shadows from the sun in the photo. And we're
this
like,
was an early photoshopping.
And we looked at it, and it was exactly, she was exactly right, that it was, the shadow on the chin was going in the opposite direction.
Right on. It's amazing that people can,
somebody stuck a head on it, basically.
Yeah, it's amazing that people can, like, be aware of that early in life. I remember being, like, I forget where it was, about 8, 9, 10 around there. I found out that I was adopted, and that was kind of like poof. That was it.
Yeah,
like from there on, I was just like, wow, my whole life's been possibly a lie, and like I don't know what's real, I don't know what's not. Where do I even start? And like I had to like. Yeah,
I guess I could go back to Santa Claus if I wanted.
Yeah, right on. No, that's a really bad conspiracy. Like Bill Hicks makes that joke too about like goldfish put Lincoln Logs in your Easter basket. That's the story of Jesus, that type of stuff. But Seth, I'll throw it back to you. And then there was another question that Scorpio had presented. I want to ask you as well, Seth. But just a good concept of what started your awareness.
I don't know. I mean, the first conspiracy I ever heard was, from a friend that was a Christian, and his father said that the dinosaurs were a hoax. I don't know. So I think maybe when I was asking the question, how come we were in the Vietnam War, because I was young at that time. That was my kind of thing, like, what is the Vietnam War about? And nobody could give me a straight answer. And it wasn't until a couple years ago that I found out it was over oil and offshore natural gas. So.
Okay, and the other question was, believe it or not, somebody was actually asking, how do I donate to the Zietgiest movement? And I was hoping you might happen to have, be able to clue in on that one. I personally don't have an answer to that, but...
the Zietgiest movement is not taking donations. We don't accept donations or anything like that, but we do recommend that if you want to donate to our direction, you donate to... It's the Venus Project, but it's actually Future by Design is their nonprofit. So if you go to venusproject.org, you can donate there.
Are you guys still there?
I'm here.
Okay.
Okay, sorry about that lull, guys. I'm back. I had a bit of a... the router through my, through where I get my internet access is someone else's, and they like allow me to use it. So every once in a while, if I blip out, just hang in with me, keep talking, and we'll get moving. Do I sound okay right now?
Yeah, you sound fine.
Great. Sometimes it causes an echo or reverb and stuff, but sorry about that. I guess we did cover then the concept of the computers that are able to, like, we are going in this direction. So does this at least give you a starting point to at least answer that question of the supercomputers and so on and so forth, or did you want to expand on that?
I don't think it's a good idea to rely on a supercomputer. If you are, and yes, clouding, sharing, whatever you want to call it, process sharing, is a good way to avoid kind of the linchpin dilemma of that, which, that is, and if you guys really are working on the software, that's great. I'm going to have to check that out. Maybe I'll grab those links when we're done with the show here. But yeah, I mean, it's just, I don't know, the whole kind of Deus Ex Machina kind of ness of it. I can see that really putting off a lot of people, And when you guys do put out your films or your information, I think it's really important to include the fact of what you're doing to work on your computer system. With real up to the date of this is exactly where we are at the time of this filming, so that people know, because it really comes across as imaginary. And I mean, I'm sure there's people who are all for the RBE, but I am sure there's a lot of people who are also put off by that as well. That's just a suggestion to the movement.
It is kind of hard to explain to people. I do understand what your issue is. I mean, I often refer back to when people ask about like the decision process and blah, 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 blah. I joke about like various friends of mine. They don't always get it, but like sometimes I can broach the subject where I've got this one friend who said he got an iPhone, so he stopped thinking for himself. And like, so it's like people are already kind of doing this, and like when they don't really get it on that level, I then try to like take it to like they call Bing.com a decision engine.
Right.
And these are the types of things that,
I don't like the decisions it comes up with.
That's fine, but it is still something that it's a starting point to get people the concept of where things are, where a Geiger counter, just a pointer. Do you know what I'm saying? As to where things are trying to be headed towards. They're also, they talk about in the latest film about how certain things are not. They are keeping people in the. It might have been in. I'm not 100% sure which resource it came from, but it was one of the Zietgiest ones, and it was about how non-disclosure agreements became my focus, because they talked about the profit incentive and how it kept people from actually in different fields from cooperating. Say the guy from AT&T and a guy from Apple and another guy from IBM all have these great ideas that could merge and make an awesome, even better iPad than there currently is. But they're prohibited from doing so because of the profit motive and the creation from the profit motive of non-disclosure agreements. And part of RBE would eliminate that. And this way it would make it so that people on interdisciplinary teams would be able to communicate more fluidly, and we would be able to create, hopefully, imagine getting the world's best computer techs on, or the guys that are literally the best in the world at creating something like Bing, a decision engine, and getting them all to work on it and making it so that they don't have any corporatocracy ties. It is my suggestion. I believe where things are that's the understanding I have come up with. That's something I also want to mention to everyone, is like, this is the understanding I am at. I am not 100% on anything here, because it's just what I've studied so far. I believe I'm really great at the basics, but I don't think I can. I don't think I'm at the point where I can progress.
If I can expand on that just a little bit, as someone who works in the computer industry and is familiar with non-disclosure agreements, I think actually non-disclosure agreements are good. Because for a couple of different reasons. Number one, it's because there is an investment, both time and et cetera, that you need to make sure that you get a return on. And this is we're talking in reality, not under some different situation. That it gives you the time to develop something for yourself, and without being pressured by direct competition over a project. Now, I use non-disclosure agreements, when I make my video games and stuff. I both when talking to other people and people talk to me. And the thing with a non-disclosure agreement is that it's exactly that. It's an agreement. You know, it's two people sitting down saying, we're going to talk about something or we're not going to talk to other people. And people have the right to make those agreements. Now, patents, on the other hand, I'm totally against. I can't stand patents. They drive me crazy for exactly the reasons that you just said about the NDA agreements, is that it stops people from developing better technology. And it creates a huge amount of waste physically. You know, when we have all these different products that compete against each other, they get thrown out after 2 years. You know, with patents, we need to start realizing that the technological advancement at this stage of the game is more important than the profit. Yes, this is true. You know, Ford invented the car, but Toyota perfected it. You know, like that's the name of the game, really, right, when it comes to civilization.
I'd like to get back to the whole computer idea, the supercomputer. But I'm affected by like information overload. I'm constantly trying to educate myself about new stuff. So part of the Zietgiest movement's goals is to inform people of the current state of technology. And so in that sense, we already have systems that are being utilized in the corporate world. It's like certain systems like just-in-time inventory. And without computer systems and, you know, distributed communication, certain companies couldn't exist because that's the way they run things. It's like instead of maintaining a warehouse at the manufacturing plant, they have a supply chain system that's set up for them in such a way that just when they need the part, it's delivered. So that's part of the concept with the RBE, is that, you know, we're not going to have a centralized computer. People get confused by that, and they think it's going to be a centralized computer. It's not going to be. It's going to be decentralized control, but centralized information. Like we have the internet. It doesn't seem like all this information is distributed to everyone. You know, like that's my field, is computer networking and stuff like that. And so, and packets go over the internet, they actually go to everybody. And, well, I shouldn't say that. If you're on a local network, the packets go to everybody, but when it's on the internet, things get routed to the right location. But basically, all the information is out there. I mean, I could set my my network card to promiscuous mode, and I could sniff everything that's going across the network and capture it. And, you know, it's just, I don't know why I went off on that tangent, but anyway, you know, it's the technology that we are going to use to get to the RBE is already here. It's just being used in a way that's kind of supporting the current system. Not kind of, but actually is. It's supporting capitalism. It's supporting all these things, the market system and all that. But the technology for us to do what the Venus Project is proposing is here now. It's just the change of attitude that needs to take place.
Well, in addition to being able to track and distribute, there's also the information of you know, getting people to be a part of it, to give up their stuff. You know, one of the things about trade is that is a kind of an organic way of doing that. When you trade with somebody, you know, you say, I have this, and they say they have that, and you decide how much of each of you wants of what. You know, that kind of system already exists, like you said. It's monetary based. That's just, you know, because people didn't have computers. We needed money as a way of tracking the value of things. Part of what's going on with this world economics right now is that all the values are getting skewed. So it's really hard to tell, who gets what, and usually somebody gets more than they're supposed to. So really, the question is about getting people to move to your RBE, and since you're using a world, model instead of a local model, I see that as problematic because you can't expect everybody in the world to be down with the RBE. I mean, it's just a statistical issue that there will always be, people who want to do things the old-fashioned way.
Why?
This is part of why I actually put in that whole clip into the video I responded with you on with Brandy's stuff, because it kind of goes into that. She talks about how if there's a whole bunch of people that are like, hey, we've got our guns, you're not taking our shit away, blah, 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 then so be it. We're going to leave those people alone. But if, say, just because it's an easy example at the moment and not because it's actually necessarily happening, although there is a Zietgiest chapter in Egypt, say, what if we got lucky and, just for example, these guys actually get a chance to promote the idea, the entirety of Egypt suggests it, and they decide, and they actually go for it, and they're like, screw it, fuck the pyramids, we're going to totally take this to the next level, and they build the Venus Project there. That entire country is looking to then donate their resources in whatever fashion in order to get things started. Then hopefully, say, one of the neighboring countries is just like, hey, holy shit, it's working. Let's do that. And since it'll all be open source information, it'll be like, here you go, guys. Here's how to recreate society. Have fun with it. And I think slowly that Othello board could flip if people actually started working together. That's again,
right. Oh yeah, no, I can totally agree with that.
That's the best answer I can give you at
right.
the moment.
I'm just saying when you present your models of how it will work, you also have to present your models of, where it's not a giant homogenous group. You have to address the issues of people, who aren't going to comply, and there'll even be, it's not just going to be people with guns saying don't take our shit. I don't see it changing anytime soon that there won't be guys with guns that are coming to take your shit. So you gotta have to be able to have a plan of action for that, which is why I mentioned that your letting them shoot you plan isn't such a great idea.
Okay. Now I'd like to actually address that if you don't mind.
Yeah.
I'm
sure.
sorry, Seth. Do you want to go? Do you want to step in? But I can get back to my thing. I'll remember it.
Yeah. This whole idea of purchasing out of desire versus utility is kind of a new concept. It's probably only about 70 years old. So, I think because of what Edward Bernays did back in around the 1930s, 1940s, in bringing the idea that, people, the consumer thing, this whole idea of, I really identify with that sports car. It makes me, oh boy. People didn't think that way. It was basically, the car was to get me from point A to point B, or whatever. It was a vehicle to move me, to transport me. And that really changed with Edward Bernays and marketing. So, we want, as a people, we aren't as greedy and, all about our stuff as, it's not a natural thing. It's more natural to share. It's more natural to cooperate. I think that America, at least, the United States, has been totally screwed because we've been advertised into oblivion.
And that's kind of a director of our culture, because they totally Like my 6-year-old watches TV sometimes, and the next thing you know, he wants whatever's on TV, and I'm like, this is programming, Jess, that I'm talking about. Like when I turn to my wife, and I'm like, why are you letting him watch this? And like that's when she's
why
like,
you gotta
oh yeah, that's right.
it and cut the commercials out for him.
Yeah, we got, my wife was kind enough to put out the $9 a month or whatever it is towards Netflix, and we wound up getting that, and that cuts out commercials for when he wants to like watch SpongeBob or whatever and stuff. So that works out really well there. But the point I was actually trying to get at is in that video when I sent you that last link with it was actually not from Lawrence of Arabia, it was from the movie Gandhi. And the point that he was making, I guess, honestly I defaulted to that clip. I had actually wanted a different clip. And in the movie from the 70s that was made, Candice Bergen played a reporter. And when that reporter went to see Gandhi when he was in jail, she talked to him about facing Hitler. And she was just like, do you actually think that a nonviolent civil disobedience could actually cause the change even in a country like World War II Germany? And he was just like, not without losses. And specifically, that meant that he felt that through the showing of the injustice that is currently going on, which is part of what the Zietgiest movies, if you watch them, like you said, you saw the first movie, and that's like a huge chunk of like the injustice that is going on in our world. And then when you move into Addendum, they focus in on the real monetary issues that are leading the problem, and it very easily, in my opinion, explains then why we should get out of this money-based profit motive and into a resource-based economy, and then they give the basics of that concept. And then they take that whole cultural thing in the third movie and do it again, but it's much more in the whole like nature versus nurture question. And then they again go into the concepts at the end of RBE, and they take it a little bit deeper than they did the first time around in Addendum. And it's my opinion that we can show the world these things as an awareness campaign first, as a way to start to open people up to the problems and the injustices and show off the injustices of our world to those who don't get it and who want to just say, oh, I'm a Republican, I'm a Democrat. No, there's more to it than that. And people need to see beyond that simple black and white to the fact that there's a world of color, not just red and blue. And I think that's kind of what people are missing at the moment, in my opinion. They're too trapped in this false dichotomy, and they're forgetting that we're more connected than we actually are.
Right. But don't forget, people are afraid of new things, so you always have to really clearly, lay out your plans and structures. It's not just enough to say something's bad, you really have to back up with a solution, because if people aren't confident enough in your idea, it's really hard to motivate them to your side.
And that is a huge hurdle for us to overcome, because the whole world is in this certain direction that it's going in, and we're trying to swim against the stream, so to speak, and educate people in the process. And it's so difficult because, especially in the United States, education system is horrible. It's about rote and memory and people having the right answer, and not about thinking and critically thinking about stuff. So you can't, it's hard. When I talk to people, they're like, if they aren't already on the kind of same wavelength, they just shut down, and it's really hard to communicate with people. And that's what we're trying to do, is say, look, this is the potential solutions that we have here, and we can't plan too much for the unforeseen. Everybody wants to know what's the transition plan. Well, I can't tell you how the transition is going to unfold, like what happened in Egypt recently is just amazing to me, because I thought it was going to end pretty badly, and it's, you know, I guess the jury is still kind of out on that as to what kind of government they're going to have.
It kind of ended kind of shadily, if you ask me.
I mean, my hope with Egypt is that the United States and other major European powers don't come in there and totally, you know, take over, because that would be extreme failure.
Well, I think that's the plan. I mean, they're moving all those troops and stuff out as like a show of force to Libya, I guess. So it's, I mean, that's exactly them exerting their power publicly, because they can't do it secretly. And, you know, they might have been able to do it secretly in the other countries, but when it comes to Libya, I think it really is chaos, and they really have no idea what's going to go down. So I think that's why they're moving their troops out there to position themselves as an authority. You know, unfortunately, NATO acts as an authority, not as peacekeepers.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely. I mean, we're also in a situation in the States here that people don't really think about, but it's an authoritarian regime here. You need permission to do everything.
Yeah, but I got these sweet Nikes, and I'm gonna get a Corvette next week, and you know, I can go out and buy anything I want, and you know that they're apparently enough like drugs all over the streets that we don't even notice the raping that we're taking, because you know, like it's easier to do that sort of thing if the person is not functioning properly. They just go along to get along. Our education system's the same thing. It just creates all these. It creates a bunch of people that almost become dependent on the system lately, rather than creating people that are helping people to become thinking, rational adults, holistic thinking, not just completely right brain, not just completely left brain. Like, we need the balance between the logic and the emotions, because emotions are a part of life. We can't just make them or wish them to go away. And well, I think they need to be taken into account sometimes.
To touch on that dependency issue, we really do see dependency, and I think that's something that needs to be addressed in the RBE stuff that's out there, because you know, a lot of it is based on computers and based on, you know, robots and things like that, and other people sharing, and there's a lot of dependency that is brought up in the films that aren't addressed as to what, you know, how do you counteract against that dependency, because there's obviously a dependency. So you need to talk more about what happens when this happens. How do you deal with it? You know.
Let me just clarify something real fast. Hold that second for just 1 second, Seth. Just to clarify with my own Dharmak, your concerns are essentially networking / Cylon based. Do you know what I'm saying? Like networking viruses that where an entire system can come crashing down,
or not even
they could stop working for whatever reason.
Or even, you know, what happens when a computer makes an executive decision that, you know, we don't have enough resources, we only have enough resources for 45 people and we got 48. You know, I need to make an executive decision here. You know, like even stuff like that could happen, you know. I mean, there's a lot of things that could happen. And you need to address those.
The computer system, all right, to explain that, and we do need to explain that to people, is that this is a computer system being controlled by human beings, not a computer system controlling human beings. And so, you know, garbage in, garbage out. So we have to make sure that the data is sound that's going in, and besides that, you know, the people. say, you know what, the results from this computer are wrong. We got to figure out what's going on here and inform people. But I think we're going to be a very open and communicating society by then, so people would be able to wrap those problems.
You can't just to interject on that for a second. You can't assume that people. You can't assume anything. You can't assume people are going to be able to deal with it down the road if they can't deal with it right now, and they can't deal with it right now. That's part of the problem.
Yeah, I understand that.
Basically, let me finish up here. Is basically what I'm saying is that in addition to your technological model, you also need to have a real human political model, that people don't have to necessarily adhere to, but just as like a guideline of how the politics of people will, interact in a system of checks and balances, to not only deal with your computer problems, but your people problems as well.
Right. Right, which is why we're trying to go to, abolish the monetary system, get rid of money, gets rid of a lot of problems that way. We won't need politicians in the future. But
right, but money is like a gun. It's a tool. It's not the money. The money is just paper and rocks and stuff. It doesn't do anything. It's how people use it. That's it. Really comes down to people are causing the problem, not money.
Well, anyway, I mean, I'm going to say
I'm willing to partially argue that because I think it is kind of a valid point, and again, while I hate to refer back to what I'm going to refer to, but the love of money is the root of all evil. So I'm suggesting that it's less an issue of money itself as it is the profit motive, where money actually existing as a tool to help in the facilitation of creation, the way, say, people suggested it back when they abolished federal, any sort of centralized bankings in America, and we had lived on the greenbacks for a while. That got wrestled its control away from, and they finally got us into another centralized bank, and hence where we're at, the problem that we're at today. So I agree that it's like the gun that you mentioned. If guns don't kill people, then it's like asking whether or not do pencils misspell words.
Right.
So I legitimize your question completely, because I believe that it is a valid point to make, that that money is just simply a tool, but it's sadly been perverted by greed to such an end that it's at the point where I personally have been doing most of my work towards the goal of getting out of money altogether. If I can find a system that will allow me to do that. First one I found was in 2003. It was called Earthships. I recommend it. I might wind up saying Earthships about 7 times on every show that I do, just because I think there's such an amazing system, and they're actually like a personal Venus project where each person has everything they need in their own home. And after seeing the third movie recently with the Rep Rap, I don't know if you've seen these things, Ken. Have you ever heard of it?
I don't think so.
Okay, they're basically a robot that it's a robotic 3D printer that is able to print out 3-dimensional objects, and because of how it's made and how you can actually, if you have one, you need very few extra parts to actually make a second one. And
right. Yeah, I do know what you're talking about. Yeah.
So if an Earthship had a rep, it becomes an amazing personal achievement in my opinion, and a goal I wish to attain before I die. I want to have these things available for my son when I pass away. And I don't know how I'm going to get to that point, but that's certainly a pipe dream of mine at the moment.
And the great thing about the RepRap is it's open source and open hardware, and it's scalable. I mean, anybody that has the resources to put together one that's maybe the size of a house could, have one that builds houses,
Right. Yeah. No, I did see that. I mean, they're cool, but I guess you'd have to find someone who has them and give them the, the plastic to make a new one. I guess you would get one. That's how it would work.
Yeah. And I had
I've seen videos on YouTube, actually. I'm sorry, Seth. Real quick. I've seen videos on YouTube where they actually have guys like working on building them from like another one and stuff. So that type of thing is available, like open source, like he was suggesting. That's it. Go ahead, Seth, please.
Yeah, open source is great. I'm all about open source. I put a lot of my code out and stuff there. And open source is a great thing.
Yeah, and there's two kinds of rep rats. One is the one that builds stuff from like plastic, and then there's the other one that actually, you like give it a block of steel and it has a bit on it and it just carves out whatever you want. So it's pretty interesting. And I had it earlier. There was a topic that was brought up, and I had a point for it, and I totally forgot what it was. So I hate it when that happens.
My apologies. I know tangents happen, and I know sometimes. Yeah, it's okay. If you remember it, please don't hesitate to write it down or something, and then speak up whenever somebody pauses.
Yeah, I think we were going to get back to your passive aggressive thing real quick. I mean, or not passive aggressive, but I guess the pacifist resistance. You used Gandhi, the movie Gandhi, and you mentioned the fact that there's losses. There was a huge amount of losses. That you have to. Not everybody's prepared for that, and it's not always necessary. Martyrdom is, basically it's suicide by cop is what it is, and. My thing is if somebody starts shooting, I don't care who it is, just run. Get the hell out of there. Screw it. Just run and regroup and figure out what you're going to do from there. But especially if it's a cop or any kind of military or whatever who's doing the shooting, just run, because those guys they're not trained to aim to wound people. They're trained to kill people. Okay. If a cop or any other military is firing, you get hit, you might as well consider yourself dead. And I don't subscribe to that. I think it's yeah. You see if someone starts shooting, run. Figure out what to do next later, but at that moment, just get the hell out of there.
I hear you. I totally understand that, but at the same time, there are people who are willing to make various sacrifices, from be it a form of protest of say not eating, like going on a fast until something ends, or if you start showing these types of, or if, like you said, people get shot at a protest, get that on camera, get that on film, get that on YouTube.
Well, we have got it on film. We have.
But how many people are watching
that Oakland cop, the BART cop that shot a guy in handcuffs. And it was pushed on the news 8 times,
That's fine. I'm sure there are a million examples that can be shown, but the problem is that people are not, they're labeling them as hey, kid got shot, blah, 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 blah. How about, call it Justin Bieber? Maybe get some people to actually start paying attention to it, because I don't know how else to do it. I'm kind of getting frustrated with a lot of
it's not
normal people, for lack of a better term.
But the thing is,
I'm just trying to make the suggestion that people are not aware. That's exactly it. People are not aware.
Care. It's not just aware. It's they don't care. They're too wrapped up in their own problems to take notice.
We're not raised to be empathic, and that's something Jeremy Rifkin points out. People need, the reason we have so much injustice in the world is primarily, well, I won't say primarily, but a big cause is people aren't empathic. They don't, you know, when I see stuff happen, and I was like, I get this knot in my stomach, and I want to do something about it. And I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
No, I know. I hear you, man. I'm always the one who has to do stuff too. I mean, if I'm on a bus and I see somebody who's getting, you know, attacked or hurt in some way, and I step in. You know, I'll step in and say, hey, leave this person alone. And there's like another 50 people on the bus who stand there and say nothing at all. You know, it's disgusting.
That's the Ash experiment in action. Do you guys know what the Ash experiments are?
No.
Okay, real quick. A guy is sent into a room full of like 6 other guys that know what's going on. One of them is like the instructor of the runner of the experiment, and they show a bunch of different lines. And the first line is like the prime example, and then the other 3 lines are like A, B, and C, and which lines are longer, or which lines are the same length as the first one shown. So all the people in the room are told, okay, go along with it as normal to start out with this guy, and then they switch it up. And all of a sudden it's like everybody's saying that the longest line, or the second longest line is actually the longest line because that's what matches. And everybody's just like, number two. And the guy that's in the room is just like, what? It's clearly number 1. What are you talking about? And everybody's, but he doesn't actually say that. He just goes along with it, and he says it the first time. But then when he goes through a second time, and everybody's again wrong, but him, he's just like, he gives this like look on his face. It's like, oh, I must be wrong. Maybe I'm just not seeing it right. And he just goes along with the rest of the crowd. And it's because you're right. It is maybe about people caring, maybe even not enough about just caring about their own awareness of a present moment. I mean, that it seems like something that should be more obvious, but it's not a training that we get in life, and it's something that I've been trying to like focus on, just like being in the moment.
Right. I mean, there's along those lines. Case in point, there's a video that was on YouTube, and the question was, you know, would you do this? And it was a video of a drunk woman on a train, at a train station, and she's staggering all around, and then she ends up falling down on the tracks. And the question was, you know, would you go and jump down there and try and get her out of there before the train came? And my answer is no, I'm a coward. I would sit and, you know what I would have done? I would have said, look, obviously you're drunk, you're making me nervous, come here and sit down on this bench with me. And I would, if I had to sit on her until the train came, that's right. What I would do.
And then you would get arrested for assault for saving her life.
Well, I don't know, but you know what? I know people can see and they can hear and they can feel. I'm pretty sure more than 50% of the people at the train station were thinking, like, she's going to fall onto the tracks, and just waiting for her to do it.
Right. Well, I don't like to step into people's personal space, and I think that they're free to make their own stupid decisions. But if someone really is in like a situation like that where they're really like potentially putting themselves in danger, I just stand near them and be ready in case she does decide to like start tipping. I'll grab her then and be like, "Oh, hey, did you just see what happened?" You know. But yeah, I mean, you know, it is a fine line between interfering and, you know, taking heroic action, I guess.
Yeah, I'm definitely not a hero.
Well, if you save somebody's life, that's heroic, you know.
Well, yeah,
even if you're not a hero, whatever your reason.
Go ahead, Seth.
No, I was just saying, I'm not the kind of jump down on the train tracks hero 30 seconds before the train rolls over. You know, I'm more like, you know, come here, sit down. You're drunk.
Well, Mark Passio threw a question at me one time a while ago, and it's like, someone from another planet's walking along with you, and you see a cliff up ahead, but you don't have a way of saying anything to them. How do you get them to not walk off that cliff? And his prime example I don't want to give. I'm going to ask you guys the question and see what happens from you. They don't know also in this premise that they don't know how gravity works on this planet. So, Seth, how would you answer that question?
And well, I can't tell them.
You don't know how to actually use words to get them to stop. How would you go about showing?
Non-verbally communicating.
Yes.
Maybe throwing a rock at them.
That's actually part of what Mark had said. It's like you could actually go up and throw a rock over the cliff before they get there so that they could see what's going to happen to them. And that's kind of what I feel like the truth movement is all about. That's like the allegory for me. Like we're up at the front, we're like we're trying to just show people that these are the issues at hand. These are how we're going to get screwed up if you don't pay attention. Are you sure you want to keep driving this runaway train?
Right, yeah, that's a very good metaphor.
There's also nothing else you actually can do at this stage in the game. Because as soon as you start to do, even if you would want to, which I don't, anything violent or even destructive, the system comes down even harder and gives itself more funding to become a bigger hammer. But if you can get the entire populace of a town to be like, we don't need cops anymore. We're not going to fund you anymore, period. We don't want to pay these taxes anymore. Poof, you've got this town that doesn't have cops anymore, and poof, you still have like people taking care of each other, if possible. I mean, I don't see necessarily a reason as to why they would be disturbed. Like it would have to be some sort of outside influence. It would be unlikely if they were.
Well, there are cops without. I mean, there are towns without cops. They exist. I've been to towns without cops. You know.
See, there you go. That's my point.
And they're very civil places. That's why they don't have cops.
Well, and I was blown away. I see. This is how I'm constantly learning new stuff. I didn't realize that Costa Rica doesn't have a military. I'm thinking, wait a minute. This is a major country. They don't have a military?
Well, what they have is a militarized police force, though. It's
right,
like
but they don't have.
It's the same thing in Japan for the past 40 years. You know, they didn't. For 40 years after the war, 40, 50 years after the war, they didn't have a military because of treaties, but I mean their police force has tanks and helicopters and everything a military has, you know.
Right, but I mean, you know, it's like Costa Rica doesn't have a standing military with, you know, all kinds of, I guess the associated major hardware like we have in this country, like fighter jets and bombers and all that stuff.
Costa Rica is a very small country compared to the United States too. That's also part of it.
Right. Well, I mean, you know, but the United States is also a small country compared to like China and Russia, and we have such a huge military compared to them.
Well, yeah, we got the largest military in the world. We have, in fact, our military equals the rest of the world's military. But most of that crap is for NATO, though. I mean, that's what we are the NATO military. Yeah, sure, France sends 7,000 troops or whatever, but we are NATO. You know, that's what it is. We're footing the bill for a global government. You know, that's.
And see, that's something you brought up in your video also. You totally said that you talked about the IMF and how they kind of pull all the strings when it comes to financial decisions. And that's how it works on a global level, and like kind of like their main branch offices in America are all the different Federal Reserve central banks. So, and I know a lot of those central banks in America also send documents over to the mint, and then the mint prints out a bunch of money, and that money then goes off to your IMF also. So they
don't even print it anymore. It's all electronic. They just make it up now. You know, like where does the IMF get their money from? They don't. They just make it up.
So much of it is electronically based. You're right.
It's only the Halliburton contractors that want it on pallets.
Right. Exactly. Right, which is one of the things that I actually like most about the RBE movement is that it addresses the issue of usury. I don't know if you guys have seen any of the videos about usury and stuff, but that's a very important point. You know, the fact that 1,000 years ago that was considered illegal and they would put you to death for it. You know, basically what it is you're leeching off of the financial system, because when you ask for interest on something, there is a finite amount of money, and so you're taking in more than eventually exists. And if too many people start doing it, eventually it creates this huge bubble, and that's what we're seeing now going on. And reality is that bubble is bursting. Like, there's no way it has to burst. That it's going to very, very soon, and it's like, you know, that's one of the things that's going to come up here, and you have to be able to be aware that you know, when this bubble bursts and these people who have the power lose their power from it, they're going to want to step right back into power, and so you have to you know, be very cautious about what is really a true movement and what is a setup.
Well, there's that whole thing with like Sean Hannity and that of the whole conservative cruise. They talk a lot of BS about Sharia law, and it's like they focus specifically on all this stuff where how like you're allowed in Islamic law to like force your women to cover up wearing burqas and this, that, and the other thing. But realistically, I think the biggest part of the Sharia law, and why no one wants to hear, why they're focusing on those parts of it rather than other parts of it, is that part of Sharia law has this doctrine in it where you're not allowed to charge interest to each other in Islamic law. Like, it's specifically in Islamic law, you're not allowed to be charged interest. Like, and they even, you can find different banks that are actually helping in those regards for people with those religious beliefs. But I personally think that's just a smart line in their Bible, in the Quran. You know, whichever line it is, I ask any of my listeners that can figure that one out. I'd love to actually add it to my quotes page, to be honest.
And there's an interesting point along these lines that Jacques Fresco talks about when people have asked him, you know, how did you come up with these ideas and these concepts? And he said he came up with it by studying the human body and how the systems in our body work, like for metabolism and other things, you know. And he makes a point that, you know, if my liver decided to go out and on its own, you know, free enterprise, you know, our body would rot away in a week, you know.
Right.
The brain.
Well, I don't know. You know, Cheney's got no heart, so, and he seems to be doing okay.
So,
have you guys seen the little mechanical pump that he has for his heart?
Oh, Cheney?
Yeah, he has no heartbeat. Like, his heart is dead. Yeah.
Yeah, Cheney's a zombie now, which I love. That's awesome. You know, I would love to EMP him.
No,
that's a little too far.
Yeah. That's a funny joke, and I'd love to maybe see like a celebrity death match thing on that myself. But like, again, my actual issue is that I really like, I truly believe that even, I know it's hard for me to even say these words, but Dick Cheney is actually a human being. Deep down inside, I think he actually is a human being. I think he is completely unaware of how distorted his philosophy on life actually is, and how greedy and manipulative and like, just like, I don't know what other words to use, really. Like, everyone knows that, like, except maybe staunch Republicans and conservatives, that like, this guy's just not a nice man, and like, maybe the most, like,
yeah, Hitler had a family and a dog too.
Exactly, and my point is that, like, in the future, all these people are going to need, like, all these rich people that are going to, like, we're going to need to basically convince to give up all their shit because, like you said, they've got all these guns surrounding all their shit. Like, we're going to need to convince these people to give it all up, as far as I'm concerned. And that's going to be obviously easier said than done. And I'm not looking to do it in a violent fashion. I'm looking to try and show them that it is going to be for the benefit of their progeny and everyone else's in order to do this. If everyone got on board tomorrow, like Jacques Designs suggested that we could change things in about like 10 to 12 years across the entire planet. And in hearing that of that level of feasibility and knowing that these reps exist and knowing that my grandparents were the supposed greatest generation of Americans, well, I'd like to turn us into the greatest generation of the world and, like, really...
Hello? I think he dropped out again. Hello?
Hello. Hey, what's up, man?
Yeah, I didn't mean that about Dick Cheney, but I mean, yeah, it's worked. Everybody is living within the same system.
Oh, sorry, how long have I been out?
Oh, only a couple seconds. We're Seth's talking. Let him go.
But it's like, you know, we can't avoid the fact that the whole world's been running like this for a long time, and we're all living under it and affected by it. And it's difficult. It's really difficult. And nobody can really rise above their environment.
Right, and I think that's very true. I mean, I'm pretty sure I haven't talked to anybody yet, like anybody at all, who doesn't realize that there's a problem. Like, everybody is in agreement that there is definitely a problem, right? But it's what to do about it. That's I think really the thing we need to start tackling on. Yes, we need to keep educating people about exactly what the problem is, because some people don't know what the problem is. They just know that there is one. But we really need to start focusing towards more immediate solutions, because it is an immediate problem.
Right, and I was thinking the other day about, how could we still work within the monetary system? And, we could still have money, but there would have to be some radical changes there. One of them I thought of was, how in our current monetary system, if you buy in volume or in bulk, you get a discount.
Right.
Well, that's counterintuitive to conservation. So we would have to flip that around and say, it's cheaper if you buy less. If you want to buy more, you can buy more, but the price is going to actually go up per unit.
Right. Well, that's more about distribution, because what it is when you buy in bulk, you're taking over the distribution responsibilities. So that's kind of like your incentive to put your effort into distribution. So it's really, I mean, I hear what you're saying about it being counterintuitive to the RBE thing, but it's really not. I don't think it's really that huge of an issue. I mean, it does the function that it's designed to do.
That's why I put as much as I did of the quote-unquote canon into the video that I did, because I wanted you to see that there's a whole process behind production as well as recycling and efficiency involved in this as well before it even gets to the distribution. And I thought that was part of your question that I wanted to address.
Right. Well, to talk about that for a second, I think distribution is definitely the key to the problem. But I think instead of trying to do it globally, and by all means you're allowed to do it globally, but I think on the short term, what we need to be focusing on is local distribution and trying to reduce the amount of world distribution that's going on, because we're wasting a lot of resources, like fuel, labor, resources on moving stuff around. I mean, in Canada, they cut logs, and then they send the logs to Indonesia, and then the logs are milled in Indonesia, and then the boards are sent back to Canada and sold as boards.
Right.
Because it's cheaper, and,
right.
and yeah,
and
that's exactly part of the
third movie. In the third movie that I showed you, that clip, they talked about efficiency through the thing, and part of it was going to be strategic, not just strategic access. Yeah, it was part of like their strategic access. It was basically to allow people to have things like more locally. And that's part of the whole idea of even setting up one of the Venus projects, is that when you within the city itself, is everyone can just go to wherever it is that they dispense the food to get it, like you would normal shops today, but also within the facilities itself would have the food cultivation areas in these, like they I don't know if I showed it to you in that video, but in one of the others they talk about these like 50-story high-rises that are basically giant greenhouses that are used hydroponics, and that cuts down seriously on distribution issues as well as production issues, because it's all localized, just like you're suggesting.
Right, but those I'm pretty sure those buildings don't exist yet, though, right?
I haven't seen anything like that yet, but honestly, I've seen
that's something I thought of when I was 14.
That you can put them all together.
It is a great concept. I actually, when I was in high school, I used to draw out these buildings that were all about recycling resources and stuff, very similar to the fresco designs. Although I wasn't really into him at the time, I was just doing it just because that's what I was thinking about at the moment. And I mean, it can totally be done. That's one thing I think that we need to focus on is localization. And maybe, if you do have, say, a Venus project, it has to have a certain element of biosphere to it, which is one of the things I keep hoping that they'll do over there, but I haven't seen it yet, is that, yes, they've got these 10 houses and stuff, but you don't see the agriculture and other recycling facilities and things that you need to maintain that society.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just been Jacques and Roxanne for the last I don't know how long, and they don't get very much funding from donations. So, I mean, it's kind of difficult to put together any kind of pilot project example, but there are examples around. I mean, when the military decides they want to do something like an aircraft carrier, everything's right there, on their carrier, because they have to do everything there. They can't be pulling into port and all that stuff.
Right, and it's hard to find an aircraft carrier to pop down in the middle of a field.
Yeah.
But here's the thing is, what you could do, and this is what I'd really like to see, and this would really help me believe in the RBE movement, because I know you guys could do this. All you need to do is get, 500,000 people, whatever, just decide, say, okay, well, this Venus project's got this land, they don't have a lot of money, but, we have people, and just go down there and start, picking up a hammer or however you do it and getting the, start really working towards getting the job done. I do a lot of stuff with like festivals and stuff, and I just use like Burning Man as an example. You got this place that's basically it's desert. There's nothing there, and 3 days later you got an entire city with everything you need. Electricity, water, food. I mean, it's all there.
And it's even
if you get enough people together, you can just do it.
I've made actually a comparison of like somebody asked me who was in the Burning Man circle of friends that like I know. here in Philly, they asked me about how would the Burning Man principles, the 10 principles of Burning Man specifically, match up with the principles within the resource-based economy. And they are pretty much like a 95% match. The one part that it doesn't match is the fact that it's literally every single thing you can find I was able to find aspects of, except for the leave no trace part. Because leave no trace is that, like, when they leave the desert, there's nothing there at the end. No porta potties are left behind. Nobody's left any trash behind. The whole 9 yards.
Right.
This
well,
is
clearly what you got there is a
the Venus Project is obviously sustainable. Yes, but the Venus Project itself is obviously a sustainable version. So that's the only aspect that doesn't actually match with all of their principles. And one last thing,
we're not going to be going anywhere.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
But one last thing that I want to mention is that, like, you want to talk about these things that we're doing right now. The Philly chapter lead, Mike Randazzo, and I were talking the other day, along with the Fed guy, Mike Salvi. We're all going to be going to a meeting on, I believe, March 9th, where they're doing the first urban creation of an Earthship. So we're actually going to start working on how to learn how to do these different designs, such as installing solar panels and creating a hydroponic setup, and like how do you create an urban home that is actually a 100% sustainable, and you can actually get off the grid and have no money and not need it and still live in Philadelphia.
Except for you still have to pay your property taxes.
In theory, part of actually the way this is going is that if they can put in enough solar panels properly, they can create enough energy that they won't need it all, and they'll be able to sell it back to the grid. And in that fashion, they can take all of that money that they sell to the grid and they can put it in an account, and that could theoretically pay the property taxes at the end of the year. So it'll be a wash in that fashion.
Right. It sounds great. I hope it works.
There's a couple projects in the works for the Venus Project to get. They want to. Douglas Millett and I forget who else. They want to look at trying to get solar panels down on the Venus Project property so that they're off the grid, or can be, might be a grid type system, but that they're not paying the huge amount for electricity that they are right now. And the other thing that Doug Millett is working on is there was somebody that is designing this hydroponic system that produces a huge amount of vegetable food or whatever, in a very little amount of space. And Doug wants to take that concept and make it fully automated so that it's like a building that people can go and get fresh fruit and vegetables from for free. So that's a project in the works.
Cool.
I also have in here guest 4. I've been largely ignoring, and I apologize for that, the chat room. So again, I apologize, everyone. But guest 4 has put in a link called IC.org. It says, International community is an exclusive term for eco-villages, co-housing communities, residential land trust, communes, student co-ops, urban, other projects where people strive together with a common vision is already doing this, which has already proven that it works and sustainable. Wow, there you go, IC.org. Thank you, Guest 4, for chiming in on that. I think people should definitely look into that. I will after the show. Thank you again, IC.org.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to want to address the idea that, when people say, oh, well, you're not for personal property or whatever, okay. I just want to say that we're not about going taking people's stuff away, you know. And it's just a matter of, we do think eventually, after this system is in place, and you know, maybe a generation or two, people will realize that their stuff isn't as defining of who they are anymore. You know, I personally wish I didn't have to have all the stuff that I have, because it just reminds me of the fact that that I just can't go down the street and, you know, have my, I don't know how to explain it. Like, I don't have access. And what we're trying to talk about in the Venus Project and the RBE and all that stuff is giving people access to what they need, rather than having this the restriction of access. So, because if I don't have the money, I can't do what I want to do. There's a lot of shit I can't do without money.
Right. I don't think anybody likes money. I think it's exactly the same situation. It's something you can't live without. Hello?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay,
yeah, I'm still here. I was just letting you guys talk for a moment, but like, I mean, to be honest with you, that's part of the problem. I mean, if we're at a point in our lives where we can't see past the single-sightedness of the eye, the money, you know, like, it really is like that, I think, programmed onto the paper even itself, is that, like, there's that one eye in the back, and it's the eye, the money that we follow so easily. And I don't know, people's greed is easy to buy out, and if we didn't have that as a barrier so often, I like, there wouldn't be homeless people. Like, we could teach them how to make their own earth ships and stuff. And that's a grand goal of mine in the end, is I'd like to see, like, it taken to, like, the welfare agencies, like I mentioned earlier.
Right. Well, one thing I want to interject here is that with the with the current system, whether you subscribe to republicanism or democracism, like whichever one you just subscribe to, they're both leaning towards the government controlling what you do with yourself and your stuff. And by starting to go to third party politics, whether it be libertarianism or Green Party or whatever, I think libertarianism is the best out of them. That's the one I subscribe to, but that's a personal opinion. But like, libertarianism is all about not having the federal government, or really just the government at all, control what you do with your property. That's basically the founding principle. Now, in that system, it's very easy for people to create things like Earthships or Venus projects, or whatever you want to call your biodome habitation system, because once it's your property, you can do whatever you want with it. And you can use it to build an Earthship if that's what you so desire to do. With the way it is now, if you try to do something, you got building inspectors and EPA and taxation and all this other stuff that's trying to prevent you from doing what you want with your resources. So I just want to put out a plug there for the Libertarian Party. If you want to control your resources and how you share them, then that you might want to go and investigate what the party is about, and see if it works for what you're trying to do.
That's fair. Yeah, thank you for, like, I believe in seeing this show as an opportunity for people to share whatever solutions they feel is viable, and I thank you for bringing it to the table. Personally, I see exactly where you're going with these issues too, because, like, even the Earthship people, they created their little area out in the desert and stuff, and they were self-sustainable. And then the government comes walking in and is just like, hey, you guys don't like have any roads and stuff, and they're like, well, the trucks we use, like, we don't need them. And then they're like, yeah, but you don't have any plumbing out here, you don't have any electricity out here. And we're like, actually, yeah, we do, here's how. And they're like, yeah, but like, we have ordinances where anybody that's got a house has to build this stuff out to their homes. And they forced them to do it. And that's
like one thing that the Libertarian Party is against more than anything. Is like, it's your property, it's your land, it's yours. You can screw it up however you want. That's one of the things the Libertarian Party is about, is bodial titles.
Things up like the way they want necessarily. Like, I'm concerned about corporations having a bunch of land and screwing them up the way they have. Such as like, hey, I own this land, let's dump all our pollutants there. Corporations
already live in that existence. Everybody else is forced to a completely different reality. If we had the same thing to people that the corporations have, then we could do great things with what we want to do. But it's like two different worlds for two different people. You know, it needs to be the same world for everybody.
You just said it. Thank you. Like, that's exactly our goal too. That's exactly the goal of the Zietgiest movement as well. Is that like we all get on the same page of like, I'm not talking about a one world dictator, but like a one world government even. Like I'm against the idea of government. Like I like the way Neil put it from VTV. He created on although Jacques Fresco does not endorse it, he still created an entry in Wikipedia called anarcho-virtualism, and that's essentially that it's basically like it's the Venus Project at its whole, but he just describes it as if like it's an anarchy, but it's also like this virtuous society that is all about taking care of everyone. So it's communal, but it's not communism. You know, do you know where I'm going with that?
Right. And then that's the thing with like the Libertarian Party with it. It's your land, you do what you want. You know, if you so desire that you and 5 people want to get together who live next to each other and start, you know, living communistically within your own property, then that's fine. You know, and if somebody over next door wants to be a capitalist, then he can be a capitalist. You know, however you want to do it. It's, you know, but the secret is you need to own your land, right? Because the way it is now is we don't own the land, we just own the rights to take care of it. You know, kind of like sharecroppers. Like real estate, you don't own your land. Like you don't get to say what happens to it. The only way you get to actually do what you want with your land is if you have a allodial title. And
there's no more allodial title.
Or if you get a permit.
Yeah.
Right.
Or if you get a permit. And then they say, sorry, you can't have the permit.
Yeah, that's why this is an authoritarian regime, because you need permission. You know, if this country, I won't get, you guys know what I mean.
Yes, very well.
We shouldn't need to ask permission from our government. If we do have to ask permission from our government, that means the government is authoritarian. So, but I think along the lines of the anarcho, virtual, whatever.
Yeah, anarcho-virtualism, yeah.
Yeah, we do have the technology now to govern ourselves as individuals. My understanding of the history of government was basically, you can go back as far as you want, but it's basically you had the tribal elder was being inundated because the tribe was getting so big. He was being inundated with all these requests from individual tribal members, and he decided to delegate that, and so we had the first system of government because of that. Government served a purpose at one time because of technology, the lack of technology 200 years ago or so. You needed delegates, you needed representatives and all this stuff because you couldn't have the whole country going to, Washington, D.C. or wherever the capital was, whether it was New York City or Philadelphia at one time, to discuss all these problems. Well, we have that. We have the technology now to be able to govern ourselves and negotiate between each other because of the communication systems we have now.
I think the next big step is getting us actually connected. I mean, on one of I don't know if it was on one of my other podcasts, but at least another conversation I had with a guy that was on one of my podcasts before. His name was Martin Truther. I highly recommend you look him up on Facebook if you get a chance. He's got this thing called the Red Pill Guide, but that's besides the point. There are these things that they talk about in the second movie called maglev vacuum tubes. And they basically
ET3.
Thank you. There you go.
Yeah,
and these things basically like float, and they're like a giant monorail system that could get you to like across the country in a matter of an hour. And we could set these things up around the entire globe. And right now, like, the government has these things underground in military bases. And his suggestion, Martin Truther's suggestion, is that we just open them up to the public. And they're now public access tubes and then we just expand off of there to make more of them. And off the system that's already there from the military. I mean, hell, the internet was created that way anyway, so I figured why not? I think that was a great way to go. Of course, the next question, of course, is how do we wrestle it away from the people with the guns? Well, probably then comes up like you've mentioned before.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't fire the first shot, but once the first shot's fired, all bets are off.
Yeah, ET3 is a pretty cool company, and they're online. You can look them up. I think the estimate is like $3 million per mile, which apparently is cheap when it comes to high-speed rail. So, kind of interesting.
Well, is there anything else you want to add in, Ken?
Well,
like we're getting down to like the last, say,
I guess
15 minutes.
Final thoughts here. If you want to see some movies about how RBE could go wrong, so you want to, as a guide stone of what to avoid, there's some great sci-fi movies I recommend. You watch 3 of them. Logan's Run. Watch Logan's Run. THX 1138. And a boy and his dog. These are 3 movies that example improper RBE structures. So that can give you a clue into some questions people might be asking about RBE. From a counterpoint. And also,
I would also.
Oh, go ahead.
Real quick on that exact point, I would also recommend the opening to the show Firefly. They talked about how in their sci-fi that the central planners basically took over and created a truly dominating society that became quote unquote free, like America is now quote unquote free today, but like that's the whole point of like violent central planning. But please go ahead. My apologies for.
Yeah, no, Firefly is great. That's like Cowboys in Space, man. That's it doesn't get any more fun than that. But I just watch it anyway. And then go check out my YouTube channel if you want to know more about me and what I'm about. That's youtube.com/theking4, as in the number 4 mayor. So that's the King 4 Mayor.
Seth, any final words from you, sir?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm really tired. I recently watched V for Vendetta, which was a very interesting movie. don't know why I brought that up. But
actually, I did an interview with V. It's one of my podcasts. It's on my site. You might have to go to the second page. But on the 5th of November, I have an opening that I did with him.
Cool. But if you want to look, if you want to see a real interesting experiment, there was a series that Discovery Channel, I think, did called The Colony.
Oh yeah, The Colony is great. Yeah, watch The Colony.
It's really an interesting take on how people could actually cooperate and collaborate in a post kind of apocalyptic scenario. And in some sense, it was kind of scary to me, but in another sense, it kind of gave me hope because these people actually did pull it together and survived the 10 weeks they were out there.
Yeah, and it also is really educational. It shows you how to build, like, solar panels and wind generators and all sorts of stuff without it just being garbage lying around. It's a really very educational show.
Yeah, ad hoc water filtration. Go ahead.
There's a book that Robert Hyland did called Tunnel in the Sky. Not sure if anybody has read that one, but that's about a group of people who, as part of their graduation from high school, essentially, they are sent to a world that has no people on it and whatsoever. It's just pure raw nature, and they're told to survive an X amount of time. And they get trapped there instead of it being the short, like a 10-day or 10-week type of thing. Also, whatever the tunnel in the sky technology is that made it so people could transport from planet to planet broke down for a while because of a solar flare of some sort. And once they finally got it back up, I invite people to just read the story. It's the same basic concept also. But please, Seth, finish up, please. I apologize for cutting you off there again.
Well, the only thing I would suggest is that, oh, jeez, I just totally lost my train of thought. We're
host foul, sorry.
What's that? I have no great words of wisdom there.
Okay, it happens. These podcasts kind of wind down when they wind down, and I think we're kind of getting to that point. But thank you again both for just engaging in the conversation and helping progress things forward a little bit, because I'm sure we brought up a lot of things that people haven't necessarily considered even as questions. Now, I personally didn't know about that IC.org. That I'm going to look into that. That was like I brought it up real quick while you guys were talking. It looks very interesting, the amount of information there. I'm going to peruse that a bit. But again, thank you so much for just coming on and even spending some time just to like BS with a couple friends here, because like we all know each other on Facebook at this point, I think, or at least you two know like both know me if you haven't met yet.
Well, not personally, but I know you from online. So, but yeah, no, it's definitely good, and I look forward to more online discussions with you, Tinfoil, and thank you for having me on the show.
It was an honor. Thank you for coming. Great. Thanks, guys. I guess that's a wrap. Good night, everyone. This was Cation Tinfoil Hat Area. Episode number 7, call ID number 89564. Please look into Zietgiest, look into resource-based economy, and the Fed specifically, because that's that seems to be a huge issue no matter what, and I'd like people to consider it and think about where their money is really coming from. That's about it. Have a nice night, everyone.